Good morning, good afternoon, guys. We're a month into quarantine, and we're back for another Geek Tavern. It's me, Sean, here, and as always, I'm joined by Mike.
Hello.
And Aaron.
I'm losing my mind.
And, we're here to get our minds off of all this nonsense by talking about movies and stuff. I, personally, haven't watched anything recently. I've pretty much just been playing video games with all my free time. So, I don't know if you guys have watched anything.
I've thrown some things on. I've, gotten I think I mentioned this last time. I started watching How I Met Your Mother here and there. I mean, I'm not, working at it. I just throw it on to, pass some time. Yeah, I've been playing video games, too. Animal Crossing came out, So that is life. But I threw on... the really big thing I can remember throwing on that I was like, yeah, I could watch this right now was Captain America, the First Avenger.
Solid choice.
Yeah.
Solid choice.
I think I mentioned this in a previous episode at some point, but I even like that one more than Winter Soldier, which I know is blasphemy.
Yeah. Took the words right out of my mouth.
But yeah, so that's about all I've been watching.
That nicely transitions to what I've been doing. Rewatching all of the Marvel movies on Disney Plus. It started with me wanting to rewatch Age of Ultron, which I haven't watched in 4 years. And then I rewatched Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame, and then I watched Winter Soldier, Iron Man 2, and last night I rewatched Thor, which I haven't rewatched since 2011. So it was actually a lot better than I remembered. I think a lot of the way that it was shot and everything is really awesome.
I'll have to go back and watch it. I probably haven't watched it since.
It's structured
that same time.
a little differently than traditional movies, where it's you have your one fight, your medium or your small fight in the beginning of the movie, and then your medium fight in the middle, and then your big battle or whatever at the end, which is how most of the Marvel movies did it too. But with Thor, it's kind of opposite, because he goes in and fucks up the Bifrost and everything. And then in the middle of the movie, it's him fighting all those guards in the SHIELD compound.
Where you meet Hawkeye.
And then the final fight is a 1v1 versus that robot that Loki gets.
The Destroyer.
Yeah, so it's kind of kind of like a de-escalation of fighting. I guess that's more because it's a character study of Thor at points.
Yeah.
Him rediscovering himself. I think that's kind of why that is. But I know that's one, point that I notice every time, or I think about it every time that I watch it. That Bifrost scene is really great, though.
Yeah, Sean had mentioned about that all the first installments of the Marvel characters have all been really solid. The first four, First Avenger, Iron Man, Thor, and the Incredible Hulk were all just solid introductions to the characters.
I still to this day have not seen Incredible Hulk.
It's a good one. It actually is pretty good.
Everybody leaves it out of their lists,
right?
Because I'm sure there are better movies that have come out since then, but I think that it's among the gold standard with the other ones.
Yeah, it was.
And everybody, I think they leave it off their list just because Edward Norton was in it, and then he left before the Avengers.
Right.
And I think everyone just counts doesn't count the Incredible Hulk. They just count Avengers when they get Bruce and it's Mark Ruffalo, and they're oh, that's Hulk. They just ignore the fact that Abomination was there.
I was gonna
that's
say
where we get introduced to Ross, General Ross.
Yeah. That movie's very canon, right?
Yeah. They mention Abomination again at one point. I forget when, but
isn't he in prison somewhere?
Yeah, he's in the floating prison that they have in the middle of the water in the Marvel universe.
Is that the one we see at the end of Civil War?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because and Ross even mentions Banner during that when they are talking about the Sokovia Accords in Civil War. He's do you know where Thor or Banner are? And they're no. And he's well, then that's a danger.
Right.
Yeah, two nuclear weapons, essentially, just undocumented.
One you can't kill, and the other, neither of them you can kill.
Right.
One is way more, in my opinion, way more dangerous than the other.
I'm glad. Just talking about Thor, I'm glad that they like actually made him a character again. Because
Yeah.
like at the first movie, he's just kind of like a jerk, and then he like realizes, oh, you know, I'm a protector or whatever. And then Thor 2 is awful, and they did nothing with his character. But then,
absolutely not.
yeah. But then in Ragnarok, they actually give him some motive, like, you know, agency, and then even Infinity War and Endgame, like
Infinity
he has,
War was a great arc. For
he has an
Yeah,
incredible
honestly.
arc in the. In
I'd
the
almost call
movies.
him the main character in.
Yeah, like
Really?
that's the one that like his character takes a complete 180 because Thor is like always like up here, and then in each movie something gets taken away from him that finally he reaches his breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you see that in Ragnarok, is where like his father dies. Spoilers. And then Asgard's destroyed.
Well, he loses his hammer too.
Yeah, he loses the hammer, and then Asgard's destroyed, and then in Infinity War, Loki gets killed for good this time. Also spoilers. And then he loses to Thanos because Thanos still gets away and does the snap. So I mean, like, there's just stuff that happens where Thor is like on top of the world and Thor won and all that, and then everything just starts going downhill for him.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, you see, I mean, that happens for every one of those characters. Like Cap, you have his complete distrust for S.H.I.E.L.D. and like the government after Winter Soldier, and he's just like on edge the entire time. And then all of his friends die in the snap, like Sam and Bucky.
Right.
So he really has like nothing left. And then like they fail to bring, like, Steve at least though remains positive, even though they weren't able to stop Thanos or get the gems or the stones to stop him or bring everybody back at first. Took him 5 years. But like even Iron Man, like in Iron
One
Man
thing
2,
about Iron Man, it's funny because like in Endgame, Endgame, at the beginning of Endgame, he's like, "Remember when I wanted to create a shield for the planet?" And it's like, do you not remember how that went? You know, like you completely leveled an entire like city.
Sokovia,
Yeah, like
Um,
he like, I know that like he grieves and has his guilt in Civil War, like that's his arc there, but like he completely forgets about that, I guess. And he's like, well, I know he's angry because he almost dies and half the planet dies and he's angry at Steve and everything, but he's just like, I tried to fucking...
which, it's funny, he's angry at Steve, of all people. He didn't lead, like, I mean, I guess he did. He helped lead the charge. But then again, like, they didn't have Thor until the very last second. If they had Thor through the whole battle, maybe the tides would have turned a little bit.
Yeah.
But also, Thanos didn't show up till the very last second. So, like, I get that Tony was pissed at Steve anyway because of what happened in Civil War and that he knew about that his parents were killed by Hydra. He didn't know that it was Bucky per se,
Yeah, and
but
Bucky.
he knew that they were killed by Hydra, and it wasn't just a car accident. But like, I get it that he was pissed off, but like when he comes back, it's like, dude, they got way bigger fish to fry. Like, don't start your petty bullshit on Cap right
I thought
now.
that was a great scene though. Like,
Oh, it was. Whenever he tells, whenever he takes the arc reactor off and he gives it to Steve and he says, when you find him, you put this on and you hide. And I was like, ooh. And then he passes out.
yeah,
And then they go find Thanos.
just Robert Downey Jr.'s like acting in that scene.
Oh, it was a great performance
yeah.
by everyone. That was like,
That's one thing that stands out. Like beginning of that movie.
I still, like, to this day, I have never, I mean, probably when I was younger watching, like, the Star Wars movies or something, but I have never felt such excitement than watching a Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, seeing Infinity War the first night and just experiencing all of it, there was, like, nothing. Like, I remember the feeling of every scene, and then Endgame, the same thing.
Yep.
Same thing, because, like, none of us knew anything that was going to happen. We just sat down and just watched it, and just, I can remember everybody cheering when Mjolnir moves, and hits Thanos in the back of the head, and it comes back past Thor,
Yeah.
and everyone's like, what? And then Cap gets it, and everyone just goes ballistic.
Yep.
I gotta rewatch that movie again.
Yep.
And then the portal scene,
Yeah.
when he gets the radio signal from Falcon,
Right.
and then the portal opens, and everybody comes out, and the Avengers assemble.
On
That
your-
was like...
What was it? On your left?
Yep. They turns around and sees Black Panther, Okoye, and Shuri come through the...
I don't think we'll ever hit that high.
Nope.
Of a
No, I don't think so.
of a thing in the theater. ever
Nobody
again.
gives a shit about what Marvel's doing. I
No.
mean, I'm sure there people are, but the only thing that I really care about is the TV shows that they're
Yeah,
making, and now they're all
that's-
delayed because of.
That's actually something that I wanted to... I've been wanting to say is I don't really care what happens with the Marvel movies now. Like, am I going to watch them? Yes.
Right.
Am I going to enjoy them? Yes. But Endgame was just the pinnacle. You
Yeah.
can't get me to care about the stakes any more than the third act of Endgame.
Well, it's going to be a lot more side characters. Like, you're not going to have an Iron Man movie.
And you're not going to build
Captain
up
America
to
movie.
yeah, and you're not going to build up to anything that big
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, I don't know like how if they like continue and do like another like 3 phases or whatever, how they're going to like top Thanos. I don't think it can be done.
No.
No.
There is no greater threat.
There isn't. There really isn't. Like even Galactus doesn't come close
Right.
to what Thanos was capable.
They
of.
almost should have went that route and then...
Yeah, and then
Then
build
Thanos.
up to Thanos. But like, I never like when Iron Man came out, and I remember like back in the late 2000s when they were all about making superhero movies grounded in reality and everything. And I remember watching Iron Man and reading like the Captain America comic books and seeing these giant battles in it with all the characters, and I'm like, we're never gonna see this on the screen.
Right.
And then Endgame came along, and it was, yep, yeah, you are. You definitely are. You're going to see them all on the screen.
Well, even when Civil War came out, I mean, I know that's not an Avengers movie, but
No,
it
but
might
it-
as well have
Yeah,
been.
it might as well have been.
That's one thing that's great about Civil War is it's still very much a Captain America movie
Yeah.
while still like having the Avengers in it.
Yeah.
Like you can tell that it's a Captain America movie.
Yeah.
Because it focuses on Bucky.
Yeah, him and Bucky. I think that's like the best scene in that movie. Whenever he finds Bucky in the apartment complex, and then they like run
Have
away.
their
and
little
everything.
fight.
Yeah, I think that's probably the
Bucky
best scene in the
jumps
movie.
like 100 feet off of their building and onto the roof of another building. Oh, by the way, one thing that was funny in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, I know Sean and I have mentioned this before, but when Falcon, his wing gets ripped off by Bucky and he's falling down towards the building and he pulls his chute,
Oh, yeah.
he's like 50 feet above the building when his chute pulls. His legs should have
Yeah,
just
he-
been pulverized
Yeah, he should have
whenever
broken
hits
legs.
whenever he hits the top of it.
Maybe they're reinforced.
Also, like, kudos to Frank. Is it Grillo or Grillo?
Grillo, yeah.
Kudos to him for playing such an asshole. Because I absolutely hate Rumlow.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just glad that he gets what he deserves.
What, blown up?
Blown
and
up,
Thrown in the
yes.
side of an embassy?
Yeah.
I guess.
But I mean, what I've learned from that is solid movies.
Yeah,
Very, very
there's a lot of
solid
great
movies.
ones in that collection.
And then
Doctor Strange isn't that great. It's alright, but it's
I
not.
liked it. I mean...
No, I like it. It's just not in my top.
Yeah, it's not near the top
Mm.
even 10, really.
No, but it's good.
But, yeah.
All in all, there's really not any bad Marvel movies. There's no Marvel. Well, MCU. Well, Iron Man 3 could probably go
yeah,
into
Thor
that
2,
but
like we said. Too.
but I like Iron Man 3. But
I don't
Thor
mind
2
Iron Man 3. I would just put Thor 2 in there, really.
And then you have the Justice League choking women and throwing them onto the ground.
I was telling Sean yesterday about Iron Man 2 that there is one major glaring plot hole in that movie.
Oh, yeah?
It's when Ivan is at the racetrack, and he has like the maintenance like suit on and like the face shield, and he's walking around with the other guys. How did he know that Tony was last minute going to hop in the race car and race instead of having the guy who is a professional racer for. Like, he had the suit on and everything, like with the whips and everything,
Right.
and he just didn't like.
He could just predict his ego, I guess.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
one
Like,
way.
how did he like know that there was that off chance that Tony was gonna be like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna hop in the race car?
I don't know.
Like, he just did all that, and I'm like, why did you position yourself there?
I think I've only ever watched that one in theaters. I
It's
never
not
went
bad.
back. I never went back. I I have this. I don't know how to put it. It's not hatred because hate is a strong word, but I don't like Mickey Rourke.
See, I like Mickey Rourke.
Now,
Now, do you not like him because of the wrestler?
here's the thing. Never watched that
Oh, that's a
Because-
great movie.
because, and this is a dumb reason. I'll tear me apart. I don't care. But he did a stint on WWE. Like, he came in and he feuded with Chris Jericho for a little bit, and like, he just came off as just such an asshole. and it might have been
probably is.
it might have been more like,
Was he supposed to be a heel or?
I don't know. Like, he just seemed like an actor asshole. And so I just never liked him after that. So
You should definitely watch The Wrestler, though.
I own it.
Really good movie.
Yeah, I've heard it.
You saying Stephen Amell did a better job than?
Stephen Amell could actually go in the ring.
Yeah.
He's had, I think, 3 matches. Yeah, they just progressively got better. I mean, he's an athletic guy, so
Oh yeah.
he does good stuff.
He's doing the salmon ladder and every other.
Well, he actually, side note on Stephen Amell, he's part of a show that's coming up. I think it's on HBO, and it's about wrestling.
Oh yeah.
So he's going to be playing, I guess, a bad guy on there.
Oh cool.
Nice.
So
I gotta get HBO. There's so many things on HBO that I want to watch. I want to watch all the new Westworld. I haven't seen
yeah.
season 2. And
I haven't seen
3.
season 2 either.
And then I want to watch the Watchmen show. I hear that that's really good.
Oh,
I wanna
yeah.
watch
Yeah,
it.
everybody says that is.
Even
good.
though Alan Moore put a curse on it.
He put a curse on it.
He did. He's a wizard, you know.
Oh my god.
The man is a wizard.
Yeah, he looks like a wizard.
He looks homeless. He looks like Rasputin. Like, have you ever
Oh,
seen
yeah.
like pictures of Rasputin?
No.
I wonder if Alan Moore isn't just Rasputin.
Hmm.
Like, they said they could never kill him. So
No, he died though. Rasputin did die.
Eh,
No, because they like chloroformed him or something, and then they tied him up, and then they threw him in the water underneath ice, and then they like found him, and they shot him too, I think,
yeah.
and then they found him like his body out of the like tying, like out of his bindings and stuff, and like on the surface of the broken ice, and they're like, holy crap, he almost survived again.
Oh my god.
So I mean, I'm sure that there's like myth behind that too. That's like, what's that movie? That animated movie that's about
Anastasia?
Rasputin. Yeah, Anastasia.
Yeah.
That's like all that is about. Like, Rasputin.
Rasputin, a kid's movie about Rasputin.
He's the villain.
Oh
You didn't know that?
no!
And
I
that's
did
like
not.
that's like a gag throughout the whole movie. Like his eye is like falling out and he's losing parts of his body. Like that's a gag about that movie.
Well, Rasputin was he was the villain in Hellboy, the first Hellboy too.
He's gonna be the villain in the Kingsman movie coming out
Oh, that's
this year
right.
too. If that ever actually does
I know
come
the
out.
name. I'm going to be completely honest. I have no idea who Rasputin even is.
He's just
Like
like a Russian guy that tried to manipulate the Tsar into like his benefit or whatever. He's
I know the name, but like I had no idea.
There's a whole
Like-
song about him.
it's a great
It's a
song.
great song. Anytime it comes on my playlist, I crank that shit up.
The music video is great too.
That's a great. Yeah, we'll have to send you the link because it's pretty great,
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
especially when Putin shows up.
Yeah.
So you mentioned chloroform.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I guess now's a good time as any. I
Yeah.
don't think we have much else to
No.
talk about.
We did talk about Marvel movies for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So
We were going to talk about Onward, but a couple of people didn't watch it, even though it's readily available for them on
I
Disney
didn't have
Plus.
time because of our next thing.
hey, why are you calling us out?
Anyway, we had a recommendation from last week from yours truly. It was 2005's Peter Jackson's King Kong. And I just felt like watching it. If you don't know what King Kong is about, I don't know what to tell you about. It's about this iteration...
It's a tale as old as time.
Yeah. This iteration specifically, a group of filmmakers get on a boat and they're going to try and find the mythical Skull Island to film there. They make it there and they meet some natives who attack them, and then they're trapped on the island, and they find Kong, and essentially the whole movie is them trying to chase Dan Andaro. Is that her last name?
Andaro.
Yeah, Andaro. And that's basically the whole movie, is them trying to catch her because she was kidnapped by the natives as to sacrifice to Kong. So
And then Kong didn't kill her.
No.
So piggybacking on what you were saying, this movie is a remake, not a reboot, a complete remake of the 1933 original. So all of the plot is like 100% copy pasted, except Peter Jackson took his liberties with what he wanted to do.
Huh.
Peter Jackson actually got into filmmaking because of that movie.
Well, yeah. I was just saying this iteration because the one that came out before it is nothing like it.
No, the 1976, we're not talking about 1976 Dino De Laurentiis' King Kong.
No.
That one is not available on Netflix or Hulu, and thank God.
Is that one bad?
I love it. A lot of people do not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
It's a very cheesy 70s remake
Okay.
movie.
yeah, 70s monster movie. That's pretty much all you have
I remember
to...
seeing one as a kid, and I couldn't tell you. I mean, it's black and white, so it's probably
It's probably the
33.
original,
yeah. I gotta say up front, I don't think I'm a big fan of King Kong. Like I don't think I care.
Like the character? Or...
Yeah, like
Oh, okay.
I just
See, I like Kong a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I can take it or leave it, I guess.
yeah, like it doesn't excite me like Godzilla. Like
That's fair.
you
It's
know.
very fair. The only reason I say I like Kong is because I had Kong and Godzilla.
right.
So actually, the first giant monster movie I was ever introduced to was King Kong versus Godzilla.
Okay.
So
I got
I
that one
had-
out there. I haven't watched that one.
That's a really good one. So
Yeah.
I had the best of both the United States giant monster and the Japanese giant monster.
basically it's all about how you're introduced
Yeah.
basically to these worlds.
Yeah.
You know?
And then mine just branched out into watching all the King Kong movies and watching all the Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
And even Toho had produced another King Kong movie after King Kong versus Godzilla. So I have a love for both.
Yeah.
One, I mean, I love Godzilla more without,
Well, there's more to take in. I
yeah.
think. Yeah.
But I do love King Kong almost as equally.
They have different subplots, themes anyway.
Yeah.
But before we get too far into it, what did you guys think of it?
Overall,
Yeah, like just give me
God damn, that was long.
it's another long monster movie. Yeah. We're making Mike sit through 2.5 hours,
Of the 1998 Godzilla.
3.5
and
hour
then
long
3
movies.
hours of Kong.
I must say,
I think I like 98's Godzilla better.
I can't agree with that.
I had said to Sean when we watched it, I was like, I said it seemed really long when I was younger because this movie came out when I was 11 and I saw it, I think, 3 times in theaters.
Yeah.
And it was really long when I was a kid. It doesn't seem as long now, but there are still some parts that I could
I
I
agree.
could snip out.
That whole beginning where it's like I know that, and I know that you have to set up everything, but like
It was long.
Whenever-
setups.
whenever,
the
like-
setup was
whenever Anne is like, it's showing all like the like performers on stage, and that's like, I'm sure Peter Jackson just wanted to get a feel for the time or whatever, but it's like you could hack all that out and then just have Anne on stage or whatever doing something, but then her thing closes down and happens chance that she meets Carl and everything. But then when you're on the boat, like all that setup is like so long. And one scene in particular that gets me is whenever Carl and Jack are like riding. So yeah, first of all, Carl's a dickhead and tricks his friend into coming on like, I don't know, like a month-long voyage.
Yeah, a very long
Yeah,
voyage.
and it's just like, oh, well, you're on the boat now. But
Sucks for you. All those
Also,
plans you
yeah.
had. Yeah.
One line that I do like is like, if you did love the place, you jump or whatever.
Yeah.
I thought that was nice.
That was
but
good. Yeah.
but the scene I was talking about was they're writing their screenplay, I guess, and Carl's like, oh, this fabled island, and then he's like, okay, and then Jack is like, S.
Yeah. And it's all like those
and it's
Peter
like,
Jackson zooms.
yeah, I was like, holy fuck, this is so corny.
Yeah, I did not care for that part.
He tricks his friend into coming on this very long voyage, and they can't give him a damn
Oh yeah,
cot.
they make him sleep in a cage.
Which I'm wondering if that wasn't like thematic for him being like in the cage. Like that's where his bunk was, because like he
He's trapped.
basically trapped him into staying
Right.
I mean,
there.
I'm
okay,
sure
yeah.
that there's
So-
something there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carl is such a jerk.
Yeah, and he doesn't even really redeem himself at
No.
any.
He has no redeeming quality.
Which
No.
the original Carl Denham doesn't do that either. Like in the 1933 movie, Carl Denham's just a dick.
Just straight up.
Throughout. I mean, he's the same. Jack Black does a brilliant portrayal of Robert Armstrong.
And being that it was Jack Black, I found myself, I'm like, trying really hard to like the character. Because I mean, I didn't know anything about I didn't even know it was a straight up, like, remake. So, I mean, if it wasn't for Jack Black, I don't know how I would have got through this movie. Just because I am a big Jack Black fan. So, a weird thing that kept happening to me, that what's his name? Jimmy, the side character, the stowaway boy.
Yeah, Tom
Yeah.
Holland.
The whole movie, I'm like, can we like reverse time and just put Tom Holland in this movie?
No. You know who that was?
Uh,
It was Bernie Taupin from Rocket Man.
really?
That's who played Bernie Taupin, was Jamie Bell.
Oh my god!
Because I kept looking at him and I was like, I know that guy.
It is strikingly like Tom Holland, though.
Like
Yeah.
I had to like almost refocus my eyes a couple times. I'm like,
And then make Robert Downey Jr.
It is slightly
Mr. Hayes.
distracting.
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah, it's Mr. Hayes from Tropic Thunder. Where Robert Downey Jr. just comes on in blackface.
No, he had a very controversial skin pigmentation.
yeah, I just kept. I can't believe I wasn't the only one thinking
No.
that.
No, we were all
He-
thinking he was
He's
Tom.
strikingly resembling
Like
too.
only in certain shots though. Like I don't know if it was like his facial expressions he was doing, or what it was, but I just kept thinking Tom Holland. So I don't know where we want to go next, but
Well, we
Yeah,
talked
just-
about
yeah.
like
is what
that
your mind-
opening was very long and not needed.
It was very long to get to the island.
Yeah,
And then even the them running aground on the rock was even longer.
Yeah, it's kind of
like
boring.
we got to the island and then they get stuck, but that takes 15 minutes for them to get stuck.
right.
And I'm like, just hit a rock and start taking water. Like
Yeah.
that's it. That's it. You don't need all this pageantry of like
I
the
did like
waves and the rocks.
I did like a
and-
lot of those shots though, like the Jimmy was up on the
Crow's Nest.
crow's nest, and like I really had like almost anxiety for him, so that was shot pretty well. So the next part of the movie I thought was very creepy was the
natives.
the natives.
Yeah, I remember being very pretty frightened of them whenever
Like
I was
that girl
younger.
just stand there was very creepy. I don't do horror movies, but like this was very horror like.
Funny thing, I noticed it when I was younger, but it took me watching it to remember it. That when the decrepit old lady is walking towards Anne, like chanting Kong and all that, she's giving her the middle finger.
Really?
If you look, like she's walking like this, and she has like her middle finger pointed at her
Yeah.
while she's yelling Kong at
Oh
her.
my.
Yeah, that scene is it really kind of cements the danger immediately.
Yeah.
Because they just harpoon Mike, the
Yeah.
tech guy.
Right.
Like the audio guy.
Yeah, just immediately. And Carl was like, "Oh no, everything's fine. It's just women and children. They're not dangerous." Drop to his knees because he gets impaled. That's really setting the tone there.
And then and then Anne screams, and then you hear Kong roar from beyond the wall, and then they're
Right.
like, and all the natives are like, "Ooh, we have
So-
to sacrifice her."
Cutting ahead a little bit. We'll come back, but cutting ahead a little bit. So Kong gets Ann and then takes him to like his like thrashing zone or whatever, and there's all those dead bodies with the necklaces of the same kind.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that those are like sacrifices from the village, or just like people that happen to wash up on the island that they capture and sacrifice to Kong?
feel
They
like it'd be
actually
both of
sacrifice the villagers, and they do sacrifice people.
Yeah.
Most of the time, though, it's villagers because not everybody like happens upon the island.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, it's completely hidden.
So they just choose like in the part of the lore of it all was in like I'm not going to jump straight to this movie, but the 1976 one, they were sacrificing the native girls. One got picked to be the bride of Kong.
Mm.
So they would sacrifice her, and then in that movie they end up kidnapping Jessica Lange and then sacrifice her instead. But yeah, I think most of the bodies in the killing grounds were all natives for the most part.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So part of my ignorance of Kong, I assume you could probably answer this, Aaron.
I can answer any question
Yeah.
you have on Kong.
So, rule of thumb, like, what's the normal size for Kong?
Kong is normally between 25 to 30 feet tall. Now, if you watch the 33 movie, he varies in scale. So,
Because I remember that iconic shot of like him on the Empire State Building.
yeah,
And I feel like it was very different from what this. We'll get there.
The
but,
puppetry, you mean? Like, is that like the
stop
original?
motion puppet.
Yeah.
like the way he like hangs on to the pointy part of the tower and like hangs off the side. Like,
It seems like he's much larger.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So it varies when you watch it, being that it was only 1933 and they were still just getting. It took them like years to make that movie.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think it was like 6 years. I think maybe to make the movie entirely. But it varied in shot to shot. So there were some shots where Kong, when he had the Anne puppet, was only 25 feet tall in scale with her and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some shots, like in New York, where in the 33 version, there's the elevated train, and Kong is standing next to it, like near it, and like smashes through the railway and like grabs the car and pulls it down. So as we saw in this version, he's much smaller and couldn't stand like near that.
Right.
So the scaling was off in shots, which is forgivable for the
Right,
time.
for the times. Yeah.
But he is usually around 25 to 30 feet tall. Now, in the 1976 one, I think he was 50 to 60 feet tall.
Yeah, humongous.
So much bigger.
Yes, and then in Kong Skull Island, he
Which don't
is-
give too much away because I do still want to watch that. But
Oh,
I mean, you can tell me
doesn't
the
give anything
scale.
away.
Yeah.
He's like 100 feet tall.
Okay, I was gonna say I remember shots
He's
of
very
that, and I'm
large.
like,
Yeah.
he's very big
Oh,
in
yeah,
that.
he's huge.
Yeah, he's incredibly large.
Which, of course, they have to make him that big for when.
for
You know,
for
the inevitable-
future events here.
But in this movie, Kong is 25 feet tall, which
Right.
is true to the original,
Yeah,
story too. Because it was originally, I think it was a short story, which is a book, and I do have the book that was written by Ernest B. Schoedsack and Marion C. Cooper, and they were the ones who took the story to RKO in the 30s, and then they made the movie.
Which there's a reference to RKO in this movie.
There is, and it's
The only reason that stood out is because I'm a wrestling fan and Randy Orton's
RKO.
move is RKO. It's the only reason it stood out to me.
That's actually a funny joke. Because when they're talking about women who could fit into a size 4 dress, he says Faye is a size 4. Faye referring to Faye Ray, who played Ann Darrow in the 1933 King Kong.
Okay.
And then when Preston says, yes, she is, but she's doing a picture with RKO. And then the music, like the little motif that plays, is the original score
Okay.
from the movie, and that's when Jack Black goes, Cooper, huh? He goes, I might have known. Like that was clearly referencing
Yeah.
King Kong.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very clearly a love letter to the original King
Oh, yeah.
Kong by Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
But hopping back to the story, after so they leave the island because they're going to get the fuck off the island because, you know, people were just murdered in front of them.
Yeah.
And then the stupidest thing ever happens. The natives pole vault their way onto the ship and manage to sneak on the ship, like murder another crew member, and then kidnap Ann Darrow and bring her back to sacrifice to Kong. And that was like the most dumb thing to me ever. Like, I barely remembered it whenever I saw it, but they started pole vaulting. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like,
Got
this
Luke
is,
Skywalker up in here.
yeah, this is absurd. But I guess,
And then like and that's the funny part is they're on the boat, right? And they're trying to like get it freed up, but nobody notices that the natives are having some wild ass rave. Like they can't hear like the drums and the chanting,
Yeah.
and they're just like, oh, they're throwing a party because we left, or like what? You know?
Yeah.
Like they can't tell that something big is going on.
Or
out
nobody
there.
saw him pole vaulting to the ship.
Yeah, like somebody is standing on the deck. Nobody saw
They
these
should have made it
guys.
foggy again, honestly, and had him pole vault
Yeah.
that way.
Because I guess in the original, they kind of just climb up the side of the boat. Like, they have boats, like canoes, and they, like, kayak, like, over to the side of the boat and sort of crawl up the side, and, like, they sneak past somebody and then, like, take her and go back. But,
yeah, so
that would have made
I-
way better.
I thought that was like really dumb.
Yeah.
And then,
that's
so
pretty dumb.
they get Anne, and then obviously they're sacrificing her to Kong. Jack realizes that, he like finds like a garment or something from the natives, and then
he drops I think it was a necklace or
Yeah.
something.
It was the exact skull that, remember when he got knocked out on the island?
Oh,
Yeah.
And he like sees the skull thing, and then it does the zoom on that little
Oh, yeah.
necklace, because then he sees it and he remembers that was like the last thing he saw before
Yeah.
he blacked out.
I don't know how far ahead we'll jump. When she's
There
being
were-
sacrificed, like they lower her down on that thing, and she's literally just hanging by her arms. When Kong grabs her,
Her arm should have been pulled out of her socket.
like something
Yeah.
should have been broke.
yeah,
The way that he snaps her off of there, I was like, "Jeez."
yeah. There's a
If
lot
she
of
couldn't break it herself,
Right.
then something should have been broken.
yeah. There's a lot of instances in this when Kong is just like manhandling Anne, and she
Oh,
should
yeah.
definitely be like pretty fucked up by some
Like
of the
he-
things he's doing.
He's throwing her around like when he's fighting some stuff. And I'm like, whiplash anybody?
Yeah, and whenever she's like performing for him and trying to get on his good side and everything, and he's just kind of like beating her around, I'm like, that's like a hefty weight slamming into you. Like
Yeah.
that can't feel good.
Right.
No, it's like a wrecking ball hitting
Yeah.
you. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Like it
his
was,
fist is large enough to fit around you. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah. So they get back onto the island, and this is where it really starts to kick off. I think.
Yeah.
Is Jack convinces a lot of the people. You know, they captured Anne, and then they're gonna go bring her back, and then I guess. Carl sees the Kong, take her, and then
Yeah.
Kong.
He's the only one that saw her at that
yeah,
point.
and then I don't remember
Him.
was Carl like, hey, she got captured by a monster? Is that what happened? Where they're just like Jack just decides to go with like take
No, it was
a expedition.
no, it was because Kong was gone by the time
Jack
came back down from the wall, because he didn't get up there in time.
Yeah.
And then
He
Carl
asked,
had
Carl
seen it.
if he seen
and
something.
and he said, Carl, he said, what did you see? And he was just like completely like horrified by like what he saw. So he didn't. I don't think he said what it was.
I was gonna say we don't see on screen if he does say
Yeah.
what it was, or
But
what
they
happened.
it's implied like we should not go after this thing, because
Yeah.
it's
And then
way bigger than what we want to deal with.
that's kind of the thing. It's like I get there wouldn't be a movie if they don't go after her and rescue her, but like the fact that this crew is just like willing to go and
like they have no
rescue
attachment to her
Yeah.
at this point. Like
And that's what's his name? Baxter?
Bruce
Baxter. Like he's like a dick and everything.
Kyle
like he's a
Chandler's
jerk.
character.
But like he's like one of the only relatable characters in the movie for me. Because like, yeah, okay, I'll go on this and capture, rescue her with you. And then after the Brontosaurus incident, he's like, all right, we got to get out of here, both shoving off. And then they're like, what are you talking about? We need to go get her. It's like, yeah, she was a nice lady and everything, but you know,
Guys, I'm leaving.
yeah, she is dead, my friend.
Yeah.
And you know, you get it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. Like,
And then he is redeemed a little bit whenever he comes back and rescues them from the insects and everything.
Right.
But then even still after that, like,
which we need to talk about a lot of the stuff that we see, starting with the dinosaurs there.
yeah,
I think, because I think that's one of the best parts of this movie.
Yeah. The visuals are really great.
yeah, they're fantastic.
Like, I didn't know that there was going to be, like, dinosaurs,
Yeah.
per se. I figured there would be some weird creatures on the island, but I didn't like were those raptors or whatever.
Oh, the
Oh, yeah.
ugly ass raptors.
Yeah, they're not good. They're not good.
They look dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were in the video game and they sucked.
Oh, yeah.
I hated those.
Yeah.
The T-Rex looked okay. I
I think
thought.
so too.
Yeah. But the raptors were not good.
They look dumb.
Starting with the raptors,
Did you notice that their like eyes were like out here? Like,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
weren't, like
they
on
had
the
a
side of
weird
their
like
head.
shaped
They were just
skull.
kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
they were really weird looking.
what were the other dinosaurs? The Brontosaurus.
Yeah.
There,
They all had
there's some good
names.
kills from the Brontosaurus to
Oh, yeah.
to the raptors,
Like
just
squashing
stepping
their
on
head,
them.
yeah.
And that's one thing. I'm sorry to interrupt, but they mention at the very end, whenever he's unveiling Kong, he's like, 17 people were perished. I'm pretty sure you could count more than 17 people
Yeah.
like throughout the film. Like if you counted all the on-screen deaths, I'm sure you'd get past 17.
Yeah.
Yeah. The dude who got his skull crushed by the bat wielding guy
Yeah.
who Strucker kills with his pistol.
Yeah, that was
What a way
pretty
to
brutal.
go! I mean, when that dude just like crushes that dude's skull, and you just see him go limp.
What was that
entirely.
made out of?
It had like bone and stuff
Yeah,
like,
like
in the head of
bones.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't like an axe or anything.
No.
It was definitely just some kind of
It looked like it almost had like teeth,
yeah.
kind of like in rows, like
Like it had to
like
been a
shark's
bone from
tooth
some
or
kind of
something.
animal on
Yeah.
One of the dinosaurs, maybe.
Yeah.
It looked like it may have been like teeth from. Like,
I forgot about that part. That part was pretty brutal. There's a lot of brutal deaths, is what I'm getting at.
Because they go to kill Carl that way too.
Yeah.
They put his head on the thing, and then you hear the gunshot.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, there were no squibs.
No,
On
he
that
just
guy.
kinda fell.
Yeah, he just fell. Like you never saw where he got shot. He got shot 3 times.
Yeah.
Like Englehorn pulled the trigger 3 times on that Luger to kill that guy.
I like in the Brontosaurus scene whenever Baxter is just like running past everybody. Like
Hey, where's
he's
Carl? He's back there filming, and then he just bolts like down the valley.
yeah, like he's I think that he's a good sense of comic relief on top
Yeah.
of being a relatable character.
And he also is played by Kyle Chandler, who was the dad in Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Oh, okay.
And he will also be in Godzilla vs. Kong, either end of this year or early next year, or never. We never know.
Wonder if they're doing that to be funny.
I don't know. Maybe the guy just loves monster movies.
Yeah.
What happens after the Brontosaurus?
It's Kong.
Yeah, it's the Kong
And
stuff.
she's,
Yeah, there's Kong fighting the T-Rexes, I think.
yeah.
she escapes from Kong,
Right.
and then she ends up like she runs through the forest, and then she meets up with that
the
that
alligator
big like
thing?
alligator looking thing, which was called a photodon.
Okay.
I know that because I have the dictionary of all the dinosaurs that were on the island and everything.
Yeah.
And then it gets eaten.
Those freaking centipedes.
Oh,
and
that was gross.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
she runs
Yeah.
out of the log and turns around because she wasn't thinking something bigger got that thing.
Well, I think
And then
what you
she
were meant to
runs
think
out.
was that it was Kong. That
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what you're supposed to think. That's what I thought.
And then when she runs out, she has like that moment of like, oh shit, like I shouldn't have run out into the open. I should
Yeah.
have just stayed in there. And then she turns around and sees it's a V-Rex holding the Photodon's
Yeah.
crippled body in its mouth, and then it starts chasing her, and then
At one point, the head like just falls.
Yeah.
off.
and rolls down like the path.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, a pretty great scene of Kong fighting the dinosaurs. It happens.
That was really
When they fall into the vines, that was pretty.
Yeah,
cool.
that looked great.
Yeah.
Like, all of it looked
He
great.
smashes the one's head with a rock, and then when they're swinging, because they're swinging back and forth on the vines,
Yeah.
and Kong has like the one by its head, and he's like punching it, and then they swing, and he swings harder towards the rock and smashes its skull on the cliff face,
Yeah.
and then jumps down and fights the last one and does his Kong's trademarked jaw break move, which he did in the 1933 one too.
So a couple things about that scene. Whenever it's just like focusing in on Anne, and it's like weirdly like it's like super like motion blurred behind her.
Yeah.
I thought that shit looked terrible.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
Like that was like a lot like with the wides with like her in his fist, which was probably all CG.
CGI. It did.
Like that
Yeah.
that stuff looked good, but whenever it was like actually her and then like with like Kong in the very
There's a lot of
forefront-
scenes where it's obviously her, but like there's an end scene where towards the end somewhere, she like touches his hand and like rubs her hand up his arm.
Mm.
But like the fur doesn't move, it just like her hand goes through it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not gonna tear it apart because of that, because
It is 15 years old.
yeah, it's
It's
yeah.
very good looking for
It
15
is.
years old, but
It
There-
holds up very well.
there
Yeah.
are like things about it that just
But there,
like,
but like you said, the vine part, like that part looked great.
it
Like
did.
it still looks great. So
Yeah.
I mean, there is great looking stuff and there's bad stuff too.
I wonder how they filmed most of this. Like, cause I don't know, she's like being manipulated by this monster. Like, how did they
I
authentically?
actually do know how they filmed all this because I was obsessed with this movie when it came out. I was so
I mean, at the time,
utterly
it probably would have
happy.
been a great thing to watch.
Oh, I was so happy that they had remade this movie, and I was so excited. So I had like all the books, the making of, the film companion guide, and then I had the Skull Island whatever, and it's this illustrated. It has all the genus and species of all the animals and everything. So most of the scenes with Anne were shot where she's basically in like a green screened. I don't know what the exact term for it is. It's like like an inner tube, I guess, like a green screen inner tube that she's like sitting in. That's on like a robotic arm that like moves and stuff.
So the inner tube would be
Yeah.
like his hand.
Yeah, so
like
then they
Holder.
CG his hand. Like most of the ground would be real set,
Hmm.
and they would just light it to make it look like it was in the jungle. But all the walls were completely green screen.
Right.
So basically, George Lucas did,
Okay. Okay.
I figure it was something.
which is
along
fine.
those
I mean,
lines.
how are
Yeah.
you going to get all those different
No,
landscapes?
it looked
You can't go
fine.
film
Yeah.
on a location like
Andy
that.
Serkis's performance as Kong, on top of his performance as the chef, is
It's lumpy.
is great. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
Andy Serkis was Kong.
Yeah,
He
Andy
spent
Serkis.
6 months in the Congo studying silverback gorillas.
Yeah. He's
I
motion
tell you what.
capture.
Jumping ahead a little bit, what made me realize how you said he did a great job and everything. When he gets to the city and he busts out of the building and is like on the street, he keeps seeing like these blonde girls that look like Anne. The way that he like reacts to the world, the cars, the lights, I thought they really pinpointed the animalistic side of it,
Mhm.
like how an animal
Would react
would react to
being
everything.
in
that has
that
never
type
seen
of-
that kind
like
of
a
stuff.
metropolis
Yeah,
versus a jungle.
right. So I thought that was a great part.
Oh, it was. And like Andy Serkis was the man. I mean, he did.
So I mean, if that was him,
Tremendous.
then that's just phenomenal.
Oh,
Yeah, that was really impressive. And clearly Peter Jackson worked with him because of his work on the Lord of the Rings movie as
Right.
Gollum and everything.
Yeah.
And that's why Andy Serkis also played Caesar
Mhm.
in all the Planet of the Apes
Well, that
movies
makes sense,
because
yeah.
he had
Which I
played-
knew he did that.
Toby Kebbell as well.
Yes, but and fun fact, Toby Kebbell, who was in Planet of the Apes, or was it? It was Dawn, right?
Yeah,
where he
yeah.
played Koba.
yeah.
He is the motion capture for Kong in Kong Skull Island.
Okay.
A lot of actors playing monkeys.
Yeah.
But they do a phenomenal job.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's very convincing.
holy crap! And that they probably hired. Well, I mean, of course they hired Toby because he was not only a character in Kong Skull Island, but also because he had worked side by side with the
Andy
go-to mocap gorilla actor.
Serkis. Yeah.
So, I mean, they made a good choice there. If you can't get Andy Serkis, get the next best thing.
Right. I forget the part that we stopped at.
Well,
but-
we were getting to
We got
right.
past the V-Rex.
Yeah, it was right whenever they were about to fight the insects and things.
Oh god.
Kong
the
shows
insects.
up after,
Mr. Hayes dies.
and he
Because
kills.
he gets
Hayes.
crushed in Kong's fist.
Yeah.
Nice sound effect where you can hear his pelvis and legs crunching as Kong grips tighter around him.
I thought he died from being thrown against the
Definitely that, but
Oh yeah, definitely that.
wall. I didn't hear the.
Oh, we were watching it and I was like, listen to his bones crunch.
Yeah,
and
it's
you
like-
hear like
yeah, he definitely
as he's
like.
being
If he would have just like been let down, he would have died. But
Yeah.
it was definitely him being tossed. in
Yeah,
the rock.
okay.
because you can see when he's like when Kong's crushing him and like he's like maybe like his arms are just above here, like his legs are just dangling, like he has
Okay.
absolutely no feeling in his legs. Or
It must have happened. Or I might have looked away or something, but yeah, I definitely didn't know that he even squeezed him. I thought he just threw him against the wall.
Oh yeah, he crushed him.
Yeah, I thought that that's probably the scariest scene in the movie is whenever they're in that trench with all the insects
Oh
coming
my
out.
god. I mean, I'm not like the biggest, scaredy cat of insects, but like
So
I would
fun
have just
fact.
passed out and died. So.
So fun fact: the
Oh, the
insect
worms,
pit,
the worms.
that killed Lumpy.
Yeah.
So fun fact about the insect pit: that scene was originally in the 1933 movie, but it was cut, and the footage was lost in a fire or something.
Oh wow.
So that footage of the original version of that does, because the log scene is in the first movie, it doesn't exist. There's only one production still that exists of the original scene of that. So Peter Jackson wanted to include that part in the movie because it was a piece that was lost
Wow.
from the original. But yeah, fuck that.
And then this is
Insect pit.
this is
I
the
don't like
scene
that.
whenever we really see that Carl is an asshole.
Yeah.
Because so I guess we should mention this before because two close people to him, his companions, die, and he's like flippantly,
Harold and
Mike.
Mike.
Yeah, he just kind of is like, yeah, we'll they died doing what they believed in,
Yeah.
an escape or whatever, and then we'll donate the proceeds of the film to his wife and children.
I mean, the first time he says that, you're like, yeah.
yeah.
And then the second time,
And then
he
the
says
second
you're
time,
like,
like,
oh, okay.
And then
Yeah.
that's whenever Preston starts to come around and is like,
Carl's
hold
an
on a
asshole.
Yeah,
second.
you kind of have the same reaction as Preston.
and so this is whenever we find out that he's really a jerk because his film reels are completely destroyed from falling down into the pit, and he just loses his
Which
mind.
thank God they were broken. I thought they were going to be like safe, because I'm like, they were caught on that branch, but like Kong is like shaking that thing like a mother trucker, and I'm like, if those are okay, I'm gonna be so mad.
Yeah. And then that's when Carl loses it, and I think he basically uses Jack whenever they get out of the trench because Jack's gonna save Anne, and he suspects correctly that he's gonna lead Kong back to them,
Right.
and then Carl is, I've got to make my money out of this somehow, so he hatches the plan to capture Kong and bring him back to New York.
Yeah.
And it's like, you could just tell there, he didn't care about any of the people that died.
Well, they also
within there.
mentioned that like prior to that, didn't they? Like the ship guy,
I think that
Captain.
it was just setting up that he was a
Okay.
trapper, and like they were probably going to
Maybe
have
it was
the
after
ability
that
to.
that they
Yeah,
did. Carl and that guy have like a conversation.
it was after the trench.
okay.
It was right there.
Yeah,
It was right.
It was
when
right
they
when
got
Jack
out, because
left.
Jack was on the other side, and he told him he's like, how many things of chloroform do you have on the ship? And he's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, we could trap this thing. He's like, you're insane. And he's like, isn't that what you do? Live animal capture?
okay, yeah.
And he's like thinking it over, like, I guess I could, but anyway, let's
Yeah.
continue because
Yeah.
I have other things to say about this about capturing Kong.
Yeah, and then so basically, you don't need to know. Jack walks 3 million miles in the middle of the night and makes it to the top of that mountain to get Anne, and then they make it back down. Whatever. This is like this is when it's like super compressed time that makes no sense in the
Yeah.
movie. But
Oh, you mean him climbing the mountain that should
Yeah.
have taken him 3 days
Yeah.
to climb?
yeah, exactly. He did it in like not even a night. Like
yeah,
he did it in
like
like
an hour
4
and a half,
hours or
yeah.
something. But either way, so he gets Anne and he leads Kong back to them, and they're all in waiting for them, and they capture Kong there. And you can tell whenever they capture Kong that there's like the crew member, like with Carl, that are like, yeah, let's get him. And then there's like Preston and Baxter, who are like kind of like, oh man, why are we even doing this?
Yeah.
Preston, he makes the decision to save Jack and Anne
by cutting the rope.
Yeah, by cutting the rope
to drop the.
Yeah, because by the way, Carl's like a good friend to Jack, and he's just like playing with his life on the opposite side. He's like, no, wait, and Preston's like, they're going to die, and then just cuts the rope and lets the drawbridge down, and they get across.
So I want. And then there's a very emotional scene of them throwing chloroform bottles in the face of Kong, which didn't think it through. And here's the one thing that I want to say about that. If that big rock hadn't have been there and they chloroformed Kong in that shallow water, he would have drowned. And there would have been
I thought that's what was going to happen, to be honest with you.
Because how are you everybody going to jump in the water and try and push the 3-ton gorilla face upward so he's floating? But like, it was just pure dumb luck that he passed out on the rock, which, I mean, I think that they were luring him to kind of
make their job to get him on the boat easier.
And probably the harpoon was probably another reason that they could have pulled him from being drowned or whatever. I want a scene of what it was like getting him onto the boat.
Right.
Getting him across the ocean. Like, did they have to keep smashing chloroform in his face to keep him asleep?
Right.
Or?
The boat did have that big crane thing. I mean,
that's
not
right,
saying that would have, like, supported Kong's weight.
It probably would have. I mean, you think they were loading in, like, cages with animals in them and stuff.
Yeah. But he had probably...
I mean, they probably needed help. They probably had, like, people off the side of the boat, like, with hooks and, like, rope to help the crane along.
Right.
But
they did have that, so I mean...
Something that we talked about last night, just as a joke, we were like, what government allowed them to bring this thing in? And
I'm glad that we all had the same thoughts.
We came up with a scenario of, they showed up and they're like, hey, here's what we got. And the mayor or the governor's like, you're not bringing that into the city. And they're like, what are we supposed to do with it? Take it back? And he's like, I guess you can just keep it here. We're not going back to that island.
Who approved Carl to just chain this thing up? Like, surely these chains are fine.
Yeah, I guess we're just supposed to assume that whoever runs New York at this time is a mustache twirling, like, money grubber or something.
Like, this all may bring money.
Yeah, it's a little
giant
ridiculous.
Gorilla.
It's all in service for the ending, really, but... the New York stuff in particular, I thought was pretty good.
The cars look good. The cars are all CG.
It's very
no. The cars are actually all.
Okay. It's a very good period piece, like that part of it.
Which I didn't know that was what this was. I didn't realize that it took place like
1933.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so a lot of the scenes with him after he breaks out, like I think the theater stuff is all good. But whenever he breaks out and he's just kind of like playing around with Anne, like that was okay. I could have not had that.
Skating.
But
I thought that was kind of cute.
I
think it works because it's like so abrupt chaos. Because he's just like, having a good time with Anne, and then a tank shell.
Friggin' mortar. Or whatever it was.
But and then whenever he's up on the Empire State Building, I think that scene goes on a little too long. I think that's where a bit of the length of the movie is felt, because it's just biplanes circling him.
Also, it's cold as fuck. It's New York in winter, and she's wearing a sleeveless dress.
Yeah.
And she's up, like, what? I don't know, a couple thousand feet in the air with Kong.
Yeah.
Like, it is...
I totally forgot that it was winter.
It is, like, below zero where they're at right now.
Yeah. I bet she could hardly breathe, too.
Probably,
because it's really high up.
Yeah, definitely didn't think about that one.
Yeah, but after Kong breaks out, everybody... Oh, and the, like, chasing Jack around in the car, that was kind of stupid, too.
Yeah, I didn't care.
I guess Did he
was
lead
very
her?
Godzilla 98.
Yeah. Did he...
It was.
Like, literally.
There's a parallel there.
Did he lead her to Anne? Or was he just kind of...
He just kind of...
I thought that's what he was doing.
That's what I thought, too.
Yeah.
But I guess... he gets knocked out. And
I mean, I think he was luring him, like, away from Times Square where it was
Okay.
populated.
Yeah.
I think he was just trying to lure him away, and then it just happened that Anne was coming out of the theater wherever he was.
Well, yeah, because he didn't know where Anne
flipped the
was.
car.
Because
No.
he
Yeah.
went to the thing wondering where she was.
Yeah. Also, I like how they just fall in love. Like,
Yeah, I guess we're
it-
okay.
It looks like, I mean, in the very beginning when they're on the ship, it's
Between
just
him
like,
and Anne.
yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's so like,
It almost like made me think that if that was like if the movie had been centered around Anne, I mean it kind of is too, but if the movie had just been about Anne
Yeah.
and her story, I feel like the way that they like the first time they kiss, I felt like that would have been like her, like if the movie had been about her, like I said, that it would have been like a fantasy like daydream of hers
Mm.
yeah, it's just
because it
kinda
just
weird.
happened so abruptly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it's just kind of there for Jack to have motivation throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, she likes him, like she knows his books.
Yeah,
and
she's
everything.
infatuated.
Yeah, but then for like him to just completely feel the same exact way towards this woman who he just met like
Yeah.
2 days ago.
I mean, I guess there was a bit of a montage there. and
Yeah.
things. We're not really sure how long they're on the boat, but
Right,
it's
yeah.
just kind of like, man, it didn't really work for me.
Well,
Yeah.
I think he was writing this.
Well, actually, they're on the boat for quite a long time because you got to think they left New York Harbor and they probably had to go because they were going to the Pacific, like near Singapore and
Yeah.
Sumatra. So they kind of had to go quite a ways across either they went across the Atlantic and like down around like Africa and all that, or they went completely around like South America. It would make more sense to go down like down around Africa, but I mean they were on there for quite a long time, you got to imagine.
Yeah, I get that, but it's just like in the time frame of the film, it's so quick their
Yeah.
relationship existing,
Yeah.
and
Well, I think he might have became infatuated with her because he was writing the script. So basically, he was writing himself in love with this girl or whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
and she's the only girl on a boat of all men.
Well, I was thinking about that. I was like, something's bad's gotta happen there.
Yeah. At points, it seemed kind of like Anne was romantically involved with Kong, which felt really strange.
That was kind of weird a little bit.
I don't know what the intention was there. It could just be me, but it kind of felt that way.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that she grew an attachment to him. but
Certainly, because he saved her life more than once. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that.
I felt that way for a little bit. Then I don't know if I like talked myself into it being like, oh, he's kind of like her pet kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know, or vice versa, I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But this movie is actually really sad because then we obviously get the famous scene of them lighting Kong up on the Empire State Building, and then he falls and dies.
Yeah.
And that scene, whenever like the life is drained out of him, it's like, I mean, like he's like haggardly breathing, like holding on to the Empire State Building. It's like he's just a fucking gorilla. You
Yeah.
brought him here.
Right.
He doesn't want to be here. It's like really sad.
Well, isn't there also like
That's the whole point. You're supposed to, like, the thing with monster movies is you're supposed to kind of feel bad for the monster.
yeah? Didn't they even mention somewhere at the end, like, well, why would he go up there where he knows he's vulnerable?
Oh yeah, when the guy
So
says-
basically, like he's like, I don't want to be here. Like he almost commits suicide. Basically, is what I think they were getting at.
Yeah, there's like, well, that's what he says. He's like, he's a stupid monkey. He didn't know any better or something.
Or he's, whatever he goes, you must have known what was coming. And then one guy's like, you're just a dumb animal. It doesn't know nothing. And then when Carl walks up and sees the corpse, and the guy says, the airplanes got him. And he's like, it wasn't the airplanes. It was Beauty that killed the beast.
Hmm.
So, like, that's like the only like
He
emotion.
kills a lot of blonde women that night, too. Or at
Well, he
least
just like
breaks their
chucks
legs.
someone there. Yeah.
And especially the one in the theater.
Yeah.
When he like just takes her and like yeets her like across the auditorium. Meanwhile, her arm is still hooked to one of the pylons that she was like attached to.
That scene whenever Carl's looking at Kong's dead body is like the only scene that you see him feel any kind of regret for like a loss of
Anything.
life.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's basically just because he
lost
can't
his
make
money.
money anymore.
Yeah.
And he's gonna be completely blacklisted from any entertainment industry now. Cause
Right.
He also is going to have a shit ton of legal
Yeah.
bills.
He killed like 17 allegedly people died on his journey, and then he brings it in. And
So many more people died in New
yeah,
York.
and like high class citizens that are just murdered by this monster that he brought in. It's like, yeah, he's done for sure.
Yeah.
And I like whenever when they're sitting there watching Kong flip out because the girl is not Anne, and he's like roaring, and Denham's like, let him roar, it makes a swell picture, and like they're all taking pictures, and then they're standing there, and Carl is like starting to look a little bit nervous, like, okay, something's up here.
He's getting a
Something's
little
not right.
agitated.
And then you see Bruce just like, he's like, excuse me, and like darts out of like,
That's
you
another
backstage.
great. Bruce is like such a relatable character.
And then I love that moment of shock where the whole show is still like going on, and Kong goes like this, and you just see him like flex, and he just goes BAM! And just rips the chain off, and everybody's like, holy shit! And they all like get up and like start
Get out of
scattering.
Yeah, I'm sure people died in the chaos of him trying to get out too. So
After Jack was like, all right, you guys gotta get out of here. And the guy's like, I'm not leaving. And then
I paid for
thing
this seat.
snaps,
Yeah,
and then
also-
he's like, all right, I'm leaving.
Jack is gonna like get arrested when he gets at the bottom of the Empire State Building, right? Because he like kicked that military guy.
Yeah, he's like,
Yeah.
this is Kong.
Yeah, like
Hey, you can't go in there.
watch me, bam. Yeah.
He should, and then like one of those military guys should have like shot him or something.
Yeah.
You know.
Of course, at the same time, I'm like, wouldn't they just be like, well, I don't know what he's doing, but
Whatever.
I mean, he's risking his own life, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Kong.
Yeah, that was 3 hours.
What would you guys your final thoughts and your ratings?
As we talked about, there's a lot of good stuff. It's just too darn long though, and like you guys told me before, the extended version is 5 hours
Mhm.
long. I can't imagine what's even in those other 2 hours.
Yeah, it's hard to
I
even
tell
think.
you, but it would take me an hour just to
Yeah.
explain the scenes that are in there.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, when we started this, it sounded like I absolutely hated it. I didn't hate it.
No, it's a long movie.
Yeah, it's just long. I'd probably go 5.5 out of 10. It's just above like okay for me, but like just the length of of it just brings it down to if it wasn't as long, it would be like I don't know, like a 7-ish.
Yeah. I would probably put mine at 8 out of 10. There are things that I could do without. The length could be trimmed down, but all in all, I enjoy this movie, and it has a special place in my heart as a very exciting moment in my life to watch one of my favorite movies be remade, and be remade very well by someone who actually gave a shit about the original and gives a shit about the story and everything. Like that's one thing with remakes, for my case anyway, is that some directors just don't put the heart into it, and they end up failing that way.
Mm-hmm.
This movie, like I said, I hold it in high regard.
It's very clearly a love letter.
Yeah,
like I said.
and that's why I hold it at an 8 out of 10. There are things that could be fixed, but it doesn't take away from the overall enjoyment that I get from it.
I'm gonna have to go 6 out of 10. Like Mike said, it is. Mine's slightly above yours. I like it a little bit more than you. I forgot to mention this. There's some like noticeably bad ADR during some scenes. The visuals are mostly amazing, but some of them are jarringly bad.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the stuff just doesn't make any sense in the film, so that's why I give it that rating. But overall, it is. I think it's better than an average movie, but not by a heck of a lot. So 6 out of 10.
I think we gave it a higher than the 1998 Godzilla. So
Yeah, averagely,
that's
I think it was better.
I don't even remember what I gave 98 Godzilla.
Mine was like 4 or something, 4.5.
I think I might have won 5.
I think I went 6.
Yeah.
I think I was still higher than
Yeah.
both of you guys, but I think I went 6, and that was the highest I was going.
Well, we've got another recommendation coming for us.
Yeah, I think it's my turn, right?
It is your
Yep,
turn.
it's your turn now.
All right, I think I'm going with this one. It is 2007's The Condemned, starring Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this.
I've never even.
I've seen like the middle and like parts of the ending.
Okay.
But I remember I was really like obsessed with the idea whenever I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, this movie's gonna be awesome, and I never actually got to watch it.
Yeah.
But
I've been playing movies like that.
it's you know what the plot is, right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's like I won't spoil it.
What is the tagline? Let me find it.
It's kind of like Hunger Games.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's something like 10 people will come to the island, but only one will leave, or some
Yeah,
shit
they're
like
like
that.
they're like criminals, and then they're,
Yeah.
it's like kind of like a TV show where they put them on the island, and whoever lives gets set free.
So it's Schwarzenegger's The Running Man.
Yeah, it's Running Man kind of.
But then with Stone Cold.
Yeah, it's got this producer guy that he's gonna, no TV studio would put this on because it's literally people killing each
Yeah.
other. He's putting it on the internet. This is very early internet. 2007.
Yeah, no rules, the Wild West of the internet.
So yeah, the winner. The winner basically is a free man or woman. There's women too. And yeah, it was basically a way to get out of jail.
Well, I'm excited to finally watch it because I know I was excited to watch it when I was younger.
Yeah.
I know I'm not going to appreciate it as much now as
This-
if I
this-
would when I was younger.
This
but
is going to be a test, kind of like your first pick was the Cats Don't Dance. Nostalgically, like I remember really loving this movie. I haven't watched it in probably 10 years. I watched it so much right after it came out, but I don't know.
Alright.
We'll see. We'll see how this one goes.
if you don't want to get spoiled for Condemned, make sure to watch it before next episode because we will be having a spoiler discussion of it. Thanks, as always, for listening and watching. Let us know what you thought about King Kong in the comments, and I hope you enjoyed us just rambling about the Marvel Cinematic Universe because we had fun.
Randomly.
We'll see you next time, guys. Later.
Bye.